Breaking news, a 15-year-old girl shot outside an elementary school. Fox 45 News is live at the scene as we press leaders on the relentless violence impacting young people.
Stop right there. I'm telling y'all tonight, I'm not up for it. I'm not up for the dumb questions.
Outrage over city school failures.
They go there to get babysit for 8 hours and come home.
New tonight, Fox 45 News Project Baltimore presses North Avenue to break their silence and answer parents' concerns.
It should be a parent decision and not their decision because it's not their kids.
Then public outcry over a new bill allowing teens to be vaccinated without their parents' consent.
The next wet weather maker is arriving, when it rolls in, and what to expect.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 10.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Kai Jackson. We begin with breaking news. A teenager is shot in Baltimore City. She's one of 8 people shot in the past 24 hours. One of those victims died. 4 of the victims are teens, and at least 19 young people have been shot this year in 2023. 4 of them have died. The teenager shot this evening was hit near a school. Mayor Brandon Scott got heated when pressed for answers tonight, cutting one reporter off.
Stop right there. I'm telling y'all tonight, I'm not up for it. I'm not up for the dumb questions. I'm up for real questions.
Well, hours before this shooting, lawmakers in Annapolis heard a bill City State's Attorney Ivan Bates is backing, pushing. It would allow stiffer penalties for some gun crimes.
So when individuals know that there is a harsher penalty for carrying these illegal handguns, some will think twice.
Fox 45 has team coverage tonight, starting with Keith Daniels. He has the latest on the horrible story of this young girl who was shot. Keith, what do we know?
Well, Kai, all quiet here at this hour, but earlier, a huge police presence, a 15-year-old girl, one of the latest young people in our city shot. And tonight, the search for a suspect. Tonight, a shooting in North Baltimore. A 15-year-old girl gunned down on the grounds of Walter P. Carter Elementary Middle School. The shooter still on the loose. Police not releasing details of what happened. The victim among 4 juveniles shot in the city in the last 24 hours. When asked about the continued gun violence and youth caught within it, Mayor Brandon Scott fired off at reporters.
Stop right there. I'm telling y'all tonight, I'm not up for it. I'm not up for the dumb questions. I'm up for real questions, not the stupid ones tonight. Let's be honest. What happened here is about breakdowns in our community. We're talking about police officers who got here 3 minutes after we got the call.
Scott said students, part of an after-school program, may have witnessed the shooting and heard the gunfire. Left traumatized, he said, by what happened. Across the street, weekly prayer service at the church at the corner. Its members brought outside by the commotion.
It's more than sad. It's grievous. It's more than sad. You can't go to church or go to a laundromat or grocery store. So it's sad. It's very sad.
The shooting happening at the school less than 24 hours after gunfire broke out in East Baltimore. Police say a boy and girl, both 13 years old, injured in that shooting. They survived.
The shooting was so severe that they had to get on the floor. They didn't know where the bullets was coming from.
The gunfire erupted on Asquith Street near Madison, right in front of Kevin Carolina's 81-year-old mother's home.
I was just devastated after I saw the aftermath of the bullet holes. To me, it was unbelievable.
Back at the school, the mayor vowing that police will capture those responsible for the shooting.
And when we do, we need people to confirm that and step up. Don't be scared, especially when you're talking about a little baby getting shot. I don't care about stop snitching or none of that. This is a kid. That doesn't apply. This is a baby. And if you're scared to step up, you're a grown man and a grown woman, you shouldn't even call yourself that.
Well, we're told the girl is a student at Mervo High School. At last check, police say she was in surgery in critical but stable condition. We're live tonight. Keith Daniels, Fox 45 News.
Keith, thank you. Fox 45 News has been following the juvenile crime crisis for weeks. 4 young people have been killed in 2023. The first was 17-year-old Deja Garrison. She was shot and killed New Year's Day. Days later, 16-year-old Deontay Dorsey was shot and killed at the shopping center across the street from his school, Edmondson Westside High. 4 of his classmates were also shot, wounded, and survived. 15-year-old LaRon Henderson was shot and killed along Liberty Heights Avenue January 25th. And 16-year-old Andre Moreno Jr., also a student at Edmondson Westside, was shot and killed in Northeast Baltimore 10 days ago. Meanwhile, in Annapolis, some lawmakers are now pushing 9 bills they hope will improve community safety and help people who are released from prison stay out of jail. Among those bills, neighborhood safety programs, grants to provide reward money for fair pay, and also inmates.
We can't just think about locking people up without thinking about what we're going to do to make sure that they're successful when they come home.
You guys always request information to come from the community, and the price has always been $2,000 to $8,000, and that is so, low compared to what you're requesting from the community. And if you want to, really disrupt it, this is the bill to support.
Well, none of those 9 bills addresses penalties for offenders, but one bill lawmakers are debating does. City State's Attorney Ivan Bates is backing it. It would allow for stiffer penalties for certain misdemeanor gun crimes. Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost continues our team coverage with the next steps for that bill.
Sponsored by Baltimore City Delegate Frank Conaway, this legislation seeks to raise the maximum penalty from 3 years to 5 for first-time illegal gun offenders. Despite some opposition, this legislation appears to be gaining momentum in Annapolis.
To dig right into the bill.
The legislation, the first for City State's Attorney Ivan Bates, bringing his pleas to lawmakers in Annapolis.
The purpose of this particular bill is the illegal handguns.
The plan has the support of the State's Attorney Association and other well-known members of the community.
I'm a mother who also lost a child to gun violence, and had this bill been passed years ago, I may not be sitting before you now expressing my concerns about why the tougher penalties are necessary.
Former State Delegate Chanel Branch says she knows firsthand the realities of gun violence, especially in Baltimore City.
I lost my son in 2017 to gun violence.
Branch says she believes in second chances for people who make mistakes, but right now, she says there needs to be a drastic change to save lives.
This legislation, to me, speaks volumes. It just shows that we in Baltimore City are trying to move in the right direction, and I'm just happy to support anybody who hears the cries of us, victims, survivors, or that are trying to, do something different and more positive in Baltimore.
Raising the maximum penalty from 3 years to 5 doesn't take away a judge's right to implement a sentence they feel is appropriate, something Republican Delegate Robin Grammer of Baltimore County is raising questions about, noting judges don't have to issue the maximum penalty. And because it's a misdemeanor offense, people are only required to serve 25% of their sentence.
Start to talk about the fact that a 5-year penalty gets you less than a year. Isn't that kind of the problem here?
The judges, they don't always have to give it. We don't always have to ask for it, but it is there. It is there.
But not everyone believes harsher penalties is the right approach.
Our center strongly opposes this bill.
Heather Warnkin with the Criminal Justice Reform at the University of Baltimore Law School says giving longer sentences doesn't automatically deter crime.
Much like the disastrous war on drugs, we will not incarcerate our way out of this problem. We will continue to make it worse if we try.
However, Bates says he's heard the impacts already.
It's that new state's attorney, man. Yeah, Alvin Bates, that's all they keep talking about down there,
Inmates talking about Bates's proposal to crack down on illegal guns in the city. With congressional support from Congressman Kwesi Mfume urging lawmakers to support the plan, House lead sponsor Delegate Frank Conaway says there's a lot on the line.
Right now we're having a very serious gun problem in the city, and we have a lot of innocent people being shot and killed.
And he's hopeful his bill will pass sooner rather than later. The committee did not vote on this legislation, and it's unclear when they will take up a vote for this bill. In Annapolis, Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
Now, if you'd like to talk with your lawmaker about education, you can scan that QR code on your screen. That will take you directly to our website, which lists their official email and phone numbers. In a city in crisis, an unprecedented move by Mayor Brandon Scott at this morning's Board of Estimates meeting. The board approved a controversial BGE conduit deal despite 2 members sitting out in protest. Fox 45's Maxine Stryker has the story.
I've been asked to share a statement this morning.
2 chairs sat empty at this morning's Board of Estimates meeting as City Council President Nick Mosby and Comptroller Bill Henry decided to sit out in protest on a vote that would give BGE broad control of the city's underground conduit system, which houses 700 miles of utility cables.
The proposed underground conduit system
But
agreement
Mayor Brandon
with BGE.
Scott and the board's 2 other members, which are appointed by him, went ahead and voted anyways, pushing the deal through.
When I was elected as the mayor of this city, I made a commitment to always do what's in the best interest of the residents of Baltimore. That's it. Nothing else. No political games, no political showmanship, just what's in the best interest of the residents of Baltimore. And this proposed contract is just that. In this case, they're just simply wrong.
Hours later, outside City Hall,
And we believe we are right, and he is wrong.
the comptroller, city council president, and several city council members gathered in opposition, claiming the board broke the rules of the city charter when voting without 2 of its members.
But Mayor Scott also appears to be fine with conducting business in a manner that abuses the power with which the people have entrusted him from a transparent and open and accountable government.
Now they're calling on Attorney General Anthony Brown to intervene and determine the legality of the board's actions.
If the mayor does not show a willingness to defer an item when the council president or I ask for that in the middle of a meeting, then the mayor is going to have to live with that in terms of how the people of Baltimore see that kind of behavior and whether the people of Baltimore want to see that kind of behavior in the person in whom they have invested such extraordinary power.
The deal with BGE has been highly controversial. Just last November, city residents voted overwhelmingly to maintain the city's control of the conduit system. And last week, the city council held a hearing, grilling leaders over the agreement, which the Department of Transportation has said works in BGE's favor in all aspects. Local firms even complained they were never allowed to bid on the system. Mosby and Henry say not enough consideration has been given to the proposal. They're asking for more information and more time for public discussion on how this will impact Baltimore.
This is a precious city-owned asset that we need to take our time and have real recommendations, real options on the table.
Mayor Brandon Scott has seemingly been determined to get the deal done, despite running on a platform of transparency. He's even called in the past to limit the mayor's power on the board, but he's insistent this deal is nothing short of transparent.
Transparency is also one of my personal standards of integrity.
But most are saying something here just isn't right.
This situation is yet another example of the administration failing to lead in a manner that is grounded in respect for others.
We did reach out to the Attorney General's office to see if they would be looking into this matter. They tell us tonight they have no comment. In Baltimore, Maxine Stryker, Fox 45 News.
Mayor Scott sits on the Board of Estimates along with the 2 of his appointees, making up the majority of the 5-person board. Now, when he was running for mayor, Mayor Scott wanted to change the makeup of the board to weaken the mayor's power. In his 2 years in office, that has not yet happened. In a series of tweets today, State Senator Mary Washington says the mayor has, quote, consistently displayed a disinclination for transparency, especially when it comes to bad news. She goes on to say and call today's vote an abuse of power, saying the mayor's actions show disdain for city voters and the democratic process that he has sworn to uphold. Now, Senator Washington ends with a call to the mayor to reconsider or rescind today's vote. Well, we received a statement from the mayor's office saying no rules were broken and a majority of BOE members legally constitutes a quorum. You can find the mayor's full statement on our website, foxbaltimore.com.
Well, Kai, the next weather maker is moving at us. You can see here on the HG radar, quiet now, but we do have mostly cloudy skies. There are some showers and then even severe weather as well as wintry weather associated with this. Very dynamic system. Now, what's going to be happening for us as we head into the next 12 hours or so? Notice the clouds increase by tomorrow morning, and there's the rain moving in by tomorrow afternoon. But we could have another warm day, too. I'll let you know what the types of temperatures that we saw today are more indicative of the time of year, and also how warm it gets tomorrow in a couple of minutes.
Still ahead on Fox 45 News at 10 o'clock tonight, 23 Baltimore City public schools with 0 students proficient in math on state exams. Now Fox 45 News Project Baltimore's reporting makes national headlines, and we press for answers. New information about potential consequences for City Council President Nick Mosby's ethics violations, what and when the penalty could be. And the controversy of children being allowed to get vaccines without their parents' permission. The bill in Annapolis that would cut parents out of the decision-making process. Baltimore City schools under fire after a recent Project Baltimore report finds nearly 24 schools where no students are doing math at grade level on state tests. Project Baltimore's Chris Papps explains the school system continues to refuse to sit down and do an interview.
It was a revelation that couldn't be ignored.
And our kids are not caught up, but we're passing them.
Astonishing and so sad.
A Project Baltimore investigation finds 23 Baltimore City schools where 0 students among those tested scored proficient in math. In total, 2,000 students from those schools took the state math test. Not one scored proficient.
They go there to get babysat for 8 hours and come home.
Parents, lawmakers, community leaders demanding right now city schools fix the problem now.
What we've seen is a continued failure.
But through all of it, one voice has been missing. No one from Baltimore City Schools administration will sit down with Project Baltimore.
But this is not new. Baltimore City Schools has refused to interview with Project Baltimore since 2017, even as we have seen test scores, graduation rates, attendance, college enrollment all go in the wrong direction. This is one of America's most funded large school systems, and it has refused to speak with us about problems we have uncovered for nearly 6 years.
Who's at fault here?
I'm not really sure there's one person to say is at fault.
It was May 2017 when Project Baltimore broke the news that at 6 city schools, not a single student tested scored proficient in either math or English. At the time, Janice Lane, City Schools Executive Director of Teaching and Learning, sat down for an interview.
Is the school district at fault?
I think that I wouldn't say the school district's at fault.
Lane explained the steps North Avenue is taking to improve test scores, including extra resources for these 6 schools and increased training for teachers and principals.
It's not satisfying for any of us in city schools to see the data and the numbers look like that.
We didn't know at the time, but that interview would be the last interview city schools would grant Project Baltimore to discuss student performance. A few months later, we reported that 13 Baltimore City high schools had 0 students tested score proficient in math. This time, city schools did not want to talk about it. Instead, they sent a written statement saying, "These results underscore the urgency of the work we are now pursuing." The district said it was rolling out a new math curriculum and again focusing on teacher development.
If almost half of our kids are failing, what options do they have after high school?
In 2021, Project Baltimore found 41% of all Baltimore City high school students earned below a 1.0 grade point average in the first 3 quarters of that school year. That's below a D average.
Santa Lisa's, she should actually be embarrassed.
Despite outrage in the community, city schools again declined an interview and released a statement with steps it was taking to help students acquire the unfinished learning they lost. We got a similar reaction from North Avenue in 2022 when Project Baltimore obtained student test results known as iReady scores that showed 77% of students at Patterson High School were reading at elementary school levels. We spoke with a teacher at the school, a former student, and parents.
Our kids, they've been set up for failure.
But again, city schools declined an interview and just released a statement. iReady scores do not provide a complete or final picture of student performance.
Baltimore City is facing a devastating reality.
And now, Project Baltimore's most recent investigation showing 2,000 students from 23 Baltimore City schools did not score proficient in state math testing. Again, no interviews from city schools administrators, just a statement outlining what have become familiar steps to improve. But this time, North Avenue says it's confident these instructional strategies will help. I'm Chris Pabst, and this is Project Baltimore.
That brings us to our question of the day. Do you think the Baltimore City Schools CEO and school board are acting in the best interests of students? So far, 100% of those who voted say no. Go to foxbaltimore.com/vote and click on the Project Baltimore tab to weigh in. Governor Wes Moore has been in office for about a month now, and it's promising to be an advocate for Maryland students to get them the best education possible. Now, Republican Delegate Kathy Szeliga says the governor is cutting funding from a program that would allow low-income students to attend private or charter schools.
The Boost program is a scholarship program that Governor Hogan set up to help kids in chronically failing schools, like these 23 schools, get a scholarship to go to a non-public school. Unfortunately, Wes Moore cut the budget of that program, so we're going to work hard to restore that.
Reports say Governor Moore's budget cuts $2 million, or 20% of the program's funding. Next week, the House Ways and Means Committee will hear a bill that would codify the program into state law. Ahead of that hearing, Fox 45's Project Baltimore is demanding answers from the governor. They sent a list of questions asking why is he proposing to cut some funding if he's concerned about the impact this will have on the thousands of families who will no longer have this opportunity, and what options children from low-income families have to seek a better education. They're also asking the governor about the report showing 23 city schools have 0 students testing proficient in math. Project Baltimore will continue to press for answers and will bring you a full report in the coming days. Next on Fox 45 News at 10, why a group of researchers does not want scientists to use the terms mother and father and what those would be replaced with. And we're following developing story, a mall shooting in Texas. It's at the same complex as the Walmart massacre 4 years ago. We'll have an update coming up.
And the first 70-degree reading of the year, and that's ahead of our next weather maker. Temperatures should be more like this April 24th. So, hey, we are warming quick. Usually our first 70-degree reading on average is about March 2nd. So we're ahead of schedule, and it puts us on the 7th warmest meteorological winter, and we still have about 2 weeks to go. I'm going to let you know if we're going to add to those numbers coming up in my Weather Authority forecast.
And let's take a look right now at the Fox box. On the top left, no survivors after a Tennessee National Guard Black Hawk helicopter crashed 15 miles northwest of Huntsville this afternoon. The military says 2 service members were killed when that chopper crashed and exploded. Top right, our Sinclair sister station in Texas reports 1 person has been killed and 3 wounded in a mall shooting in El Paso. It's the same shopping center where the 2019 Walmart massacre took place. 1 person is in custody, but authorities are still sweeping that mall. On the bottom left, Democratic state lawmakers in California are looking to limit the use of police dogs, calling the current use, quote, deeply racialized. If the bill passes, canines would be used for search and rescue, but not arrests. On the bottom right, some researchers want to replace the use of terms like mother and father with egg donor and sperm donor. The Ecology and Evolutionary Biology Language Project says the current language reinforces stereotypes. Be the first to know about breaking news by signing up for News on the Go. Go to foxbaltimore.com and click on Mobile Alert Sign Up, under the Station tab. You can also download the Fox45 app for your smartphone. Search for WBFF in your app store.
Why wouldn't they trust parents not to make that decision?
Well, should parents have the final say on childhood vaccines? The bill being considered that could cut parents out. Authorities say they've busted a massive multi-state cocaine ring with a safe house in the Baltimore area. The amount of drugs and cash seized, and why this is just the tip of the iceberg. Fox 45 continues to follow that breaking news. For the fourth time in less than 24 hours, a juvenile has been shot. Right now, a 15-year-old girl is in critical condition. The location denoted on the map that you see right here. And this happened right outside of Walter P. Carter Elementary Middle School just after 6:15 this evening. So far, no word on who opened fire outside that school. We will stay on top of this story. Fox 45's Keith Daniels will have an update ahead on the late edition. We're following three big stories at 10:30. The Biden administration is being criticized for its response to a train derailment that sent tons of toxic chemicals into an Ohio community. Some say the administration isn't doing enough. Federal authorities announced the takedown of a national drug trafficking organization, what we know about the alleged drug ring, and charges they're facing. Fox 45 News follows a controversial bill in Annapolis that would allow children to get vaccines or vaccinated without their parents' consent. We begin there. That bill from Senator Cheryl Kagan would allow minors to make their own vaccine decisions. Fox 45's Rebecca Pryor has details and reaction from parents.
Who should decide if a minor is vaccinated, the parent or the child? According to Senator Cheryl Kagan, minors should make the call. 2 weeks ago, Kagan introducing Senate Bill 378, which would give children ages 14 and up, quote, the same capacity as an adult to consent to vaccination. And for children under 14 years old, they can still receive vaccines without a parent's consent if their healthcare provider deems they have the capacity to do so, including children who are developmentally disabled or unemancipated.
I'm against it. I would not agree to that. Why wouldn't they trust parents not to make that decision?
The measure drawing sharp criticism from parents we spoke with, most of them arguing it's not the government's place to decide what's best for their child.
I think that's the problem with lawmakers now. Want to control what parents do in their household with their children.
The bill further states while children have the same decision-making ability as an adult when it comes to choosing a vaccine, The same doesn't go for refusing one. So if a parent does want their child to be vaccinated, the child will no longer have a say.
Well, that's not right, because if they can consent, they should be able to refuse.
And it's not just parents speaking out. The bill is also receiving backlash online from freedom advocacy groups and Republican lawmakers.
This is terrible public policy.
Delegate Kathy Schlega calling it a violation on parental rights.
There's no one that knows that child better, that has that child's best interest at heart. That is the parents.
A week ago, Fox 45 reaching out for an interview with Senator Kagan. Kagan in her office, not responding. Following up today, we sent questions asking, do you not trust parents to make informed decisions for their own children? And how can children have the capacity to consent to the vaccine but not refuse it? Again, our questions going ignored.
Rebecca Pryor, Fox 45 News.
A Senate hearing on that vaccine bill is scheduled a week from today. And that brings us to our question of the day. Should kids be able to get vaccinated without their parents' permission? So far, 89% of viewers say no. You can head to foxbaltimore.com/vote to weigh in. Well, Maryland lawmakers are looking to expand government-funded coverage for transgender medical services. Medicaid covers treatments deemed medically necessary, like hormone therapy. A Democrat-sponsored bill would include access to cosmetic procedures and treatments given to minors with gender dysphoria. Critics argue the services should not be funded with taxpayer dollars or taken from funds meant for low-income individuals.
So any dollar that's spent on one thing is one less dollar for something else. And so it's certainly a legitimate objection to say, okay, should this really be a high priority when people are struggling with really basic physical and health problems?
Supporters say the bill would help transgender individuals access life-saving health care. Several states have passed similar bills allowing Medicaid coverage of cosmetic procedures, including Hawaii. A committee approved Vincent Schiraldi's nomination to lead Maryland's Department of Juvenile Services. It happened without Republican support. The GOP group says that while he's qualified for the role, the GOP group says they do have concerns that Schiraldi believes people shouldn't enter the justice system until they're 21 or 25. The committee also wrote, we can't ignore the significant increase of juvenile crime in our schools and in our communities. Now, Schiraldi's nomination now goes to the full Senate for its approval. In a city in crisis, the Baltimore City Ethics Board will determine the penalty for City Council President Nick Mosby after a judge rules that he violated 2 ethics rules. This week, a judge said Mosby broke the rules when he failed to report a legal defense fund created in his name. The board met for 2 hours to talk about possible sanctions today. A decision could come by the end of the week. For the third time in a matter of weeks, authorities in Maryland announced a major Baltimore area drug bust. Attorney General Anthony Brown announced the indictments against 6 people said to be involved in an interstate cocaine ring. Last week, the AG charged 9 people accused of operating in the 1800 Boys gang. The investigation included a murder. And in January, feds unsealed indictments against 34 people in 2 Baltimore-based fentanyl rings. The feds say the drugs killed multiple people. Fox 45's Alexa Ashwell has been following these investigations. She takes us behind the scenes of today's information.
6 people are listed in this criminal indictment. 3 of the defendants are from Baltimore County. The other 3, Texas, which is where authorities say these drugs were coming from.
These are the 6 defendants accused of operating a national drug trafficking ring right here in Baltimore.
In total, detectives recovered narcotics from this criminal organization with a street value of roughly $500,000.
Maryland Attorney General Anthony Brown making the announcement alongside federal, state, and local authorities, detailing investigators seized $493,000 in drug proceeds, 15 kilograms of cocaine, 400 grams of crack cocaine, and nearly a dozen firearms as a result of this investigation.
Detectives executed search and seizure warrants at multiple stash locations and on vehicles used by the drug trafficking organization.
These court documents outlining the inner workings of the organization, the records detailing from July to October of last year, these three defendants from Houston, Texas, would make regular trips to Baltimore where they would offload large quantities of drugs into a safe house. Authorities say that safe house, located here in Pikesville, was rented and managed by named kingpin Medford Smith, described here as a high-ranking in-state manager and distributor. Authorities say Medford and the two other defendants from Baltimore County would then transport the drugs to new locations, where they were broken down for street-level distribution across the Baltimore region. Authorities stressing the severity behind these drugs and organizations infiltrating local communities.
In the last decade, we have witnessed a 500% increase in the number of cocaine-related deaths in Maryland.
Every time we take illegal drugs like cocaine and firearms off the streets, we are saving lives.
All 6 defendants are in custody. Authorities say more arrests are possible. Alexa Ashwell, Fox 45 News.
Making headlines, emotions run high in a Buffalo courtroom today as the man responsible for the racially motivated murders at a supermarket last year received his sentence. At one point, one of the victim's sisters threatened to choke the suspect. Then a man charged him.
You don't know a damn thing about black people. We're human. We like our kids to go to good schools. We love our kids. We never go in those neighborhoods and take people out.
Well, the suspect, 19-year-old Peyton Gendron, was sentenced to life in prison without parole. He faces separate federal charges that could carry the death sentence. The federal government's response to the train derailment that spilled tons of toxic chemicals into an Ohio community is under intense scrutiny. National correspondent Kayla Gaskins has more.
As cleanup efforts continue in East Palestine, Ohio, critics like Manny Gunasekara, a former EPA chief of staff, noting the lack of top leadership on the ground.
Administrator Regan, the current EPA administrator, has not been there. The Secretary of Transportation, he has not been there. And those are the two people who have jurisdiction that could make a big difference.
Gunasekara arguing their absence highlights the Biden administration's disconnect between promoting big ideas and solving real problems.
At the same time this happened in East Palestine, Ohio, you had Buttigieg and the administrator out there giving speeches about climate change and about how everything is going great, but they're ignoring an environmental disaster.
EPA Administrator Michael Regan addressing leadership's absence on Fox News.
I feel very confident with the resources that we've deployed, and I will see this firsthand later this week.
Congressman Bill Johnson did visit the accident site this week. You're on the ground, you're talking to your constituents. What is your takeaway on how they're feeling as far as the federal response is going?
They don't know who to believe. And so there is a degree of skepticism.
Do you think that criticism of Pete Buttigieg right now is fair or not?
Absolutely it is. I represent East Palestine. I haven't heard from the secretary. I haven't seen any of his people in East Palestine. Secretary Buttigieg has been watching this thing from an armchair quarterback perspective.
Earlier this week, Buttigieg tweeting, "I continue to be concerned about the impacts of the train derailment and the effects on families."
A question Congressman Bill Johnson says he has for Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg is why this train was not identified as carrying highly toxic chemicals when it was, and how to ensure states are made aware of similar transports in the future. In Washington, I'm Kayla Gaskins.
We want you to join the national conversation. Do you trust the federal government knows what dangerous chemicals are being transported on trains through your neighborhood and communities? You can weigh in. Just point your phone at the QR code, and that will take you to the discussion. Some sad news to report tonight. Actress Raquel Welch has died. According to a statement from a manager, she died in Los Angeles this morning after a brief illness. She was 82 years old. Welch rose to fame in the 1960s and made more than 70 film and television appearances. She is survived by 2 children.
The push to make DEI programs on college campuses DOA, dead on arrival. I'm Angela Brown in Washington, D.C. The new numbers coming out of Florida and what college professors are doing to push back.